what we're going to do is we're going to go through, I'm going to ask him a few questions, and then we're going to set aside some time so you can ask questions of us, because really the goal here is this to be educational. We've been through this a lot. We spend a lot of time with different customers around the country, talking to them about what's going on with AI, what they could do, what the challenges are, just answering questions about the technology, whatever it is. And I want you to have a chance to do that today. And anything we don't get to in this room, I think there's a reception afterwards, and we'll be available to answer some of those questions then as well. Okay, so what I want to do first is, when we start with you, Andrew, say what you do, what your role in AI is.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Taylor. I'm one of the directors over at TerraCon Geotechnique. And prior to about a year ago, I did zero in AI, zero in tech in general. And TerraCon, one of our longer term strategies, we identified that we wanted to make sure that we were implementing AI into kind of all different parts of our business, and both locally as well as across the rest of the divisions in the field and everything. And we needed somebody who would champion that. And I was voluntold that I would champion that, and here we are. So it's been a wild journey where I try desperately to drink through a fire hose and learn from the experts around me. But it's coming along slowly, but it's coming along.
So do you think of your company as an early adopter of new technology normally, or late adopter, or it's a mixed bag?
I think before I started, we kind of presumed we were late adopters. We kept hearing over and over and over again that if you weren't already using AI, you were behind, and everybody was going to pass you by, and you were probably going to go out of business or be replaced by a robot or whatever it was. And I think now being into it, I think the experts that we have, you guys are the anomaly, not me. I think there are less people who are experts out there than you're led to believe. I think there are the overwhelming majority are just figuring this out. And the more conferences I go to, the more people I talk to, the more people that are the same as me, or maybe even a year behind and are just getting going. So I think my opinion has changed dramatically in the last little while. I thought I was behind, and now I start to feel that maybe I'm not as far behind as I originally thought.
Fair enough. Very good. Harry, what do you do?
Hi, everybody. I'm Harry McIntosh. I've been with TELUS now about 19 years, and I'm now VP of our sales systems at TELUS. So all the retail systems, the website, all those e-commerce flows, everything. So I support all of those, and I've been kind of in the world of digital disruption the majority of my career, and so embracing something like AI comes natural to just jumping into it and go look for the opportunity. But I totally understand what you mean. It's actually, the more you know, the more humbling it is about the opportunities in front of you and how much you haven't found out yet. So totally awesome world to be part of now, because we're trying to integrate AI into every flow that exists, every decision that is made, and unlock new levels of scale in personalization aspects that we do too.
So given your role, I assume like the Black Friday weekend's no big deal for you?
Well, don't make me twitch, right? So, well, yeah, I mean, I inherited a bunch of applications a few years ago that were in dire straits. And for some folk here who are either TELUS customers or work for TELUS, you may have actually experienced service disruptions during that time. And I was put in front of some of our most fragile applications in the sales journeys, and had to make them robust and make them robust really, really quickly. Yes, so we have the way TELUS sales work is they continuously grow and grow and grow throughout the year till you hit Black Friday, smash, there's this massive spike up, and then you've got to make sure your systems handle it. So now we're looking at not only do we need to handle scale using regular technology, we're looking at how does AI help us get through incidents faster when something breaks, so that we can identify problems. I love that security demo as an example of just chuck your information into the bot, into the Copilot, and it will spit out answers much quicker, or at least coach you on how to triage it with the right levels of process. So examples like that yeah, I'm using AI everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll come back to that as well. But Steve, why are you here?
Well, I'm here because, in theory, if you're using FuelX, I'm kind of responsible for how it works or it doesn't work as often. The more I'm say, so I lead engineering for FuelX. I have been leading engineering for a very long time. Some of you earlier heard. So I built a very early website. I've been sitting at sort of that edge of technology and trying to bring it to it. I'll talk about democratizing access to technology as sort of the theme of my career. So that's why I got here, and continue to love the sort of what's possible of how many more people can do so many more things with AI. It's such an amazing transformative technology. So that's why I'm here, because I love seeing that transformation, making it possible.
And what was your role early in TELUS's adoption of generative AI?
Well, I was very fortunate to run a team that was focused on developer tooling. And we focused a lot on how we make people be faster and safer and things like incidents. And because of that, I was in a great spot to sort of run a really small side project on what is this new thing that everyone is definitely going to use, whether we want them to or not, and how do we make it safer? So I've been involved in TELUS's experiment from the very, very beginning by basically giving the really smart people in my team just a little bit of time and space to go invent the future.
Okay, so in the audience, has anyone here had trouble deciding where to start with generative AI? Raise your hand, please. Never? Like you didn't, like everybody knew right where to start? No, of course, like that's one of the hard things, I think, time and again. And I want to ask Andrew about this. So you're given different opportunities to use generative AI. How do you decide what use case to look at first? Where to target value? What's the approach that you've taken, you would like to have taken, those types of things? Like how do you decide where to start, what to do?
Two different answers. What we took versus what I wish we had taken were not the same answer. But I think for us, to the point made a couple of times today, there was an endless number of scenarios that we talked about that we could have used, and we got caught in that cycle of talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And eventually, what ended up happening for us, or for TerraCon, we had a champion in the finance department who basically said, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do coding for invoices anymore. So I'm going to go and find a solution. And they were kind of the first early adopter, our first champion. And once that was on, so this poor woman, because you couldn't pay me enough to do her job, she at the time was coding 1,500 invoices a month by herself. She was our only AP lady, and she was doing all of it by herself, and which was brutal. And basically her entire job was spent coding these. Found a tool and was able to utilize it, and now does it in a fraction of the time. And so once that kind of initial domino fell, then everybody else went, oh, hey, look at that, it worked. And then people got on board a lot faster. So that was the piece. We spent probably way too long talking about it without any real action. And then now we're starting to get on that train. And now actually we're working with Brian and the co-pilots, we're starting to see more and more people get involved, and more of those, I call them simple projects or little, it might only affect 5 minutes of your day, but if it took a 10-minute project and made it 5 minutes, and you do that 1,000 times, all of a sudden you got something. And so we're seeing the adoption kind of scale up a lot faster now. It just took a really long time to get us over that hurdle.
Were some of the early conversations around big projects as opposed to little projects? Like, can we solve this? And it got stuck?
Yeah, all of them. We're talking about replacing entire roles or automating an entire, maybe an entire process. And I think that was probably the biggest learning of stepping back from needing to solve the entire problem and start looking at individual steps within that problem and saying, okay, we can use AI for steps 1, 3, and 5, and it'll just help somebody else do the project that much faster. And so that was a huge lesson for us, and embarrassingly probably took a lot longer to learn than it should have.
Harry, what do you think about that in terms of value from a lot of little projects as opposed to value from big projects? Is that something you came across?
Yeah, absolutely. Same flow, right? You look at the global narrative on AI and how it's taken over everything. It's these big things. But where I find daily life is with AI is in the small tasks. And it's taking work processes, whatever length of time they are, whether it's a 10-minute thing or a 12-hour thing, and turning them into smaller things. So that's no different than regular process improvement that you're already all running today in your businesses. And I think that's the important place to start with Gen AI, is just, what are your biggest problems today? Who's passionate about solving them? And then just ask, how can AI help you solve it? Don't need to go any further than that. No big ideas required. But once you start building up the ideas, one on top of the other, then you start understanding the massive opportunity in front of you. But you got to still do the crawl, walk, run process to get there, even on your own imagination.
So you have a number of people in your organization using AI every day. What are they doing?
Everything, right? So well, first of all, I'll give you an interesting one. I was looking at the numbers today because I get a view of active usage of AI in my team. About 80% of my team have used AI. There's still 20% that never have, right? That still exists in a team, in a technology team as well. Only about 33% of them are active using it every day. It is not everybody, and I'm okay with that, because all these use cases we're talking about and showing and all the great examples you see everywhere across the world, it's not done by everyone. It is done by champions. It is done by a group of people extremely passionate about it. That is where you need to unlock inside your own organizations. It's just get them running, and they will go so much faster than the rest of the team. Now, no slight on the people that haven't got there yet. We just got to work out the path and keep inspiring them every day. But what are they doing with it? They're doing their jobs with it, right? Like, they're doing every step. Again, there's processes, whether it is automating testing, whether it is deciding on their strategies and having somebody to ask silly questions to and turn it into a decent structure. There's people that have built co-pilots of how to talk to Harry. And actually I've gone, oh, I'm really verbose. I say all these things, but I know Harry's not got patience for that. So I'll say all my verbose thoughts into the bot, and it'll turn it into something structured that resonates with him, and vice versa. And I've got people that I talk to who really love an epic, and I have no time for that stuff. So I talk to a bot, and then it goes, okay, here you go. Do it like that. And off I go, right? Vice versa. So it's a great tool for adapting style and challenging your own thoughts and approaches for a strategy perspective, as well as improving development cycles, doing the tasks that nobody likes to do, improving quality, improving the scale of which we do things, and so on. It's kind of endless, to be honest. Which way we go, it's every single problem has an AI edge to it.
So this is a really interesting line of discussion, because it's like we do these things in different cities, and like you wind up talking about different things every time because different ideas come up. And I'm just thinking about like this idea of like the Big Bang project. Like, how many people were around when ERP was new, right? Like, it was just like the biggest of Big Bang projects, right? And then the internet, and that was big, but you could do it smaller if you really wanted to. And then like layering on. But when we went to mobile, I think it was different. We basically said, okay, well, we'll do email first, access to documents for executives, and then, layered on things from there. So I'm thinking it's more like mobile, where you pick off different pieces that you can actually get benefit from right away, as opposed to like going big bang. Even though a lot of people are doing that, it's just like the hardest way to get started, and it's the longest time you have to wait to get value.
You see no value, right? And I think one of the glorious things about the world of AI is being able to demonstrate and showcase value every single day. And when you do that, you get everybody energized and excited about the art of the possible. And I do think that that's the most important aspect right now, is inspiring people and giving them the tools they need so that they start exploring by themselves. Because when we do that, that's when the biggest innovations start to grow, is when you give everybody what they need and show them all the pieces.
Yeah, that's great. So Steve, I think along these lines, it's actually really interesting, but might be helpful for you to talk about sort of the origin of copilots and why that started, because I remember, the story about Hashim Fahmy, the CIO, said, hey, we're going to move forward with this very quickly. They'd already done a bunch of machine learning work, but they had never done generative AI internally. But I think it was January of 23, right after GPT came out, they like sent out word to all his colleagues, say, anybody want to do anything with generative AI? And my recollection is in the first 3 months, they got 75 requests. And then the fourth month, so 75, January to March, but in April, they got another 75. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, well, wait a sec, we can't handle all this. Like, there's not enough dev resources, business analysts to do this. So talk like a little bit through that and some of the early decision process, how that came about.
Sure. So when we were first building, we had built a chat. So if those of you this morning, you can just, it's that first conversational AI where everyone could just talk to it, but every time you did it, it was fresh, right? And you can get a little bit that way. And then when we started to see people were beginning to really think about that large chunk, and as Harry was just talking about, like the magic is really when people start to solve for themselves and being able to give that to us. And that was really the first sort of ideation of a co-pilot. Can I take something that helped me once and then make that repeatable? And at the time, like this wasn't it's so funny. It's such a short time ago, but so long ago in AI that the idea of co-pilots that we see out in the world everywhere, these sort of like little apps that are sort of conversational AI tools, didn't really exist. We didn't really have a model to follow. And so we just kind of built this idea that if I let someone save kind of the concept of their conversation, that they could reuse it time and time again. And then when you're thinking about this example of all the work, and only this is a very traditional sort of enterprise model where people were submitting work to get funding and approval and had to bake in an ROI and all of this. Like it's a really complicated, long process. And when there was 150 odd, and we gave people co-pilots, and almost overnight, half of them went away. Because it turned out that about half of these projects that people want to do with AI were these little small things to solve for themselves. Right. And the adoption of co-pilots, we didn't know how it would go, but it spread like wildfire. It was one of the most interesting experiences. One of my favorite things as a builder is to build a tool and then have somebody go and do something completely unexpected with it for me. And this was really what happened with co-pilots. We really thought there'd be like a small group and it'd be quite a sort of a slow thing. But instead it went absolutely wildfire across the company. And again, I think I cited earlier, I think there's 18,000 co-pilots in active use at TELUS today. That number is growing. And people are sometimes just trying it out, right? And to like what Harry said, like find those champions, understand how people can use it and solve problems for yourselves. The joy of solving a problem for yourself is really real, right? And it's for so long with technical changes, this has been locked in. You can have a really great idea, but then you have to get together a whole team to go build a thing for you. And I think this is one of the most like the immediate transformation that happens with AI when you keep it small and you keep it approachable, is that you can just do that first small step so quickly, get that endorphin rush of solving a problem and moving on, and that iterate and learn so fast. And that I think is really the magic of what I see with this and kind of what helped that adoption grow and help more people see how it can work.
You know, it kind of reminds me of like a search box. So I'm sure everybody here has used Google once or twice, maybe a few times today. But you type into that box and originally it was the exact same experience for everybody. But then over time, they're like, oh, you should log into Chrome and things like that. And then it tends to personalize your experience either by your location or about your past searches and things like that. That personalization made it better. But it was still somewhat generic because it's like the signals were kind of weak. And thinking about like the original chat solutions that came out, if you knew how to write like a really sophisticated prompt every time, you could get what you wanted out of it. But it never really felt personalized. And I wonder if that's the thing. Everyone thinks about automation, productivity, but between automation and productivity and today, maybe it's that personalization step. So everyone's not just like this generic dialogue box to ask things of, but it's like, no, this is my dialogue box that does this thing for me. And this other thing I do, I've got another dialogue box because then it really solves the problem.
I think 100% that. I can start with, so today in the co-pilot session with those who are here, everyone kind of built an email helper, right? Which is a thing almost everyone in their job writes email. But even just in this room, like everyone had a different answer for one, what was the problem they're solving, and the voice and tone that is theirs. And watching that happen time and time again, and we in 5 minutes, like everyone can though take that and repeat that forever. Like that type of personalization is just so easy. And I'm sort of the exact opposite of Harry in that I am very, very wordy when I write. And the ability to be much less wordy is actually very critical for my success in my job because I am wordy, right? And that ability to just save myself from myself, that is not an enterprise product, right? No one's going to save yourself from yourself as an enterprise product. But my being able to just do that for myself at any time and like quietly, so no one has to know, though, and spilling the secrets here, is really, really important as well.
I kind of feel like Dr. Phil right now. Thank you. Could you tell us more about that? Go ahead, Harry.
So let me take this also then from this is now, I'm going to take you to a big idea. We haven't implemented it yet, but building on all the building blocks. So like now what we're thinking about. So also in my role, I've got digital communications for TELUS. So we send out, believe it or not, it kind of breaks my heart when I say over 600 emails are sent out a year by TELUS to their customers, right? That's a lot, right? I don't think when you do the math about how many customers we got versus how many emails, you're like, wait, something's going wrong here. Anyway, that's a personalization problem, right? So I'm looking at now, how does AI help with that scale? I don't want to blanket generic emails out to the base, right? I don't even want it to go to the base. I want it to go to niche groups with their knowledge and what I know about them. It should be the same campaign, but now niche it. So say we are going to launch a product that is going national, but I want the message to be different for every single person in this room. The potential is there now with the AI tooling available to make that happen, because I have unique customer records on our existing customers. Even just something as simple as like, if I'm going to sell TELUS TV, rather than sell, hey, everybody get excited about, I don't know, the Stanley Cup. How about I customize that for Calgary and I don't mention the Stanley Cup because, right? Because, and I talk about something that's more relevant for Calgary, right? Like, but that's the opportunity right here in front of us, right? And it's very much right here. Once you start connecting the blocks, you can start connecting things together. And not only are you driving efficiencies, but you think of things that were impossible to customize before. 600 million emails, pardon me. Now I have a vision where I can customize every single one of them with at least the smallest hint of difference to know exclude Calgary when you're promoting the Stanley Cup. And that's all right.
I didn't know we were going to go there. So Andrew, let's take this down a level. What has frustrated you most about generative AI in particular, and what makes you most optimistic about it?
Same answer for both is probably the learning component of it. So I think naively, when we first started out, there was kind of this expectation that it would already know me, would already know a bit more than it did, and it took. There was almost a disappointment piece. Some of the won't mention names. Some of the salespeople in the room hyped it up on all the things that it could do, and we got hyped up. We were excited, and so this group that our internal group called them the champions. There was this kind of initial letdown of, oh well, it can't do this and it can't do that, and well, we really wish this, that, and the other. And so there was just this, call it a dip in the excitement. And the other half of the question is what excites me now is seeing when you do get a little bit of education behind it, when you build into some of the co-pilots with some of the knowledge bases we have. We're building an exciting one right now that resonates with me, but pumping that knowledge base into the product ahead of time, being able to kind of teach it like it's a junior in the business type thing, and it's growing faster than any junior in the business is really exciting, and it's pretty cool to see happening in real time. Where I'm talking to Brian more than I talk to my wife right now, so we're talking all the time, every day, on different things that are going on, and it's really exciting because Brian gets excited about it, and then he gets me excited about it, and we're amped up, and it's just kind of cool to watch that growth happen in real time, really, really quickly.
So just for the room, is Brian a person or an AI bot?
For the first time, I met the rest. I knew his head. That was it. Now there's somebody behind the screen. It's very exciting. So it was worrisome for a while there.
All right. So get your questions ready. I'm going to ask the two gentlemen to my left one question they can both answer, and then we'll field a bunch of questions and ask any of us on the panel when you're ready. All right, so Harry, what's one thing, and actually, Steve, you can answer the same question. What's one thing that you know today about generative AI that you wish you knew 2 years ago?
Well, Andrew went there, right? It's the hype cycle. Like the inflation of expectations when you start are so colossal and you feel so frustrated. You're like, look, it's not smart. This thing's useless or whatever, right? And you still see lots of people in the early adoption phase have exactly that reaction. But so I think the hype cycle is still very high, but the reality is that some of the models aren't quite there yet on that aspect, and you've got to find your flow. But again, it's like any tool. I just look at things like these the agents that we use today and things like that. It's just another tool for you to run your business. You have to learn how to use it. It's a lot easier to learn than some other tooling out there, but you still have to learn it.
Yeah, I really said so. I think for me, the thing I wish I knew 2 years ago was actually just how bad AI is at math. Right, it's a very classic. I always everybody, and in fact, everyone goes there, right? Because we all have so much data, and I in particular spent so much time trying to make AI really good at math and numbers. And it turns out we already have a ton of tools that are really good at that. And if I'd spent more time thinking about how to connect AI to those tools rather than replacing those tools, I would have saved so much time and heartache. And now it's the how do I help everyone else not have to do the same journey as I did is something I think about a lot. Because again, it seems so good. The hype is there. It feels like it can't do anything. But then recognizing that it's really good at some things and really bad at others has been a really important lesson to learn.
I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know if this is going to be obvious to everybody. So if people are familiar with like machine learning and like before that, like big data and all these things that deal with numbers, like that's what we call structured data, right? And so we have tools that are actually very good at it. The ability for most people to get access to that capability is a little bit hard because those things are really hard to use. And then you flip into generative AI, that's like really easy to use because I can just use words. I can just tell it what I want. But then the question is, what do you marry it to? Are you using the generative AI large language model or multimodal model, or whatever you want to talk about it? Are you using that to call like a machine learning model or some sort of big data processing unit? Or are you trying to do it all in the model? And so that's a really important thing. And I want to frame this up for everybody. So I've dealt with words for a long time. And the problem with words when you're a business is if you have a lot of words, you receive a lot of words, or you generate a lot of words, you have to have people process that. And people are expensive, slow, and inconsistent, but we love them because they got these big brains and they can do stuff that none of these different tools can ever do. When we look at generative AI, it is really unique because for the first time, it automates words. People will call this unstructured data. There's other types of unstructured data. A lot of these models are very good at that as well. But we've only had really good tools for analyzing, manipulating structured data. And when we went to unstructured data, some was okay, but it was actually usually more trouble to actually build and maintain them than they actually generated value. And now these tools are really good at that. And when you pair that together with the fact that today you've got people using that, and it's helping them process those words more quickly by summarization or giving them information more quickly so they don't have to hunt through 300,000 pages of documentation to find the three things that they want, which are spread around that. That's like really powerful. And that's this like idea of elevating the humans really quickly, atomizing your use case to like solve a task, really, really important. And it aligns really well with what this technology is completely different, or how it's completely different than what we had before. Did you want to say something, Harry?
Yeah, I think the other aspect for this is important, connecting both of your points together here, is that when we look at where the AI is going, once we get beyond the chat agent, we have this thing called MCPs, which are all basically about interfaces for a system to talk to another system and act on behalf of each other, right? So imagine, let's say a TELUS MCP, and you could talk to it from your business saying, I'd like to order a new phone, but I'd like to order 10, we're in a B2B world, right? I'd like to order 10 phones, please. 10 phones for my next employee. I don't want to go to the website or anything. I'm just going to say chat, put it in the agent. And if we have connected it with a TELUS MCP, This is now an entirely new commerce interface to work with for your customers. And that's where it's all going. And it won't be just on the sales side, though. It will be calculator and things like that. Some things where, deep data science moments that an LLM might be bad for in that, or a specialized LLM, and you'll start building up all these applications together. And all those small modules we said that became big, they start growing and growing, and they're all connected everywhere, right? But I think MCPs is important to have a look at. It's what all the technologists are now messing around with the most. And because we're trying to connect the systems to talk to each other, and then you get incredible automations out the other side of it.
All right, great. Got some really smart people up here. What questions do you have? What would be helpful for you to know about generative AI, the journey associated with it, how to get value, how to convince your boss about something, how to convince the people that work for you to actually use it? No questions.
Today I had to just pick on people. We were in high school rules again, so we need to do that.
Okay, so someone tell me something they learned today that they didn't know, but they thought was useful. Anybody? So you knew all of this.
Okay.
I was just going to say, did you just come for the happy hour? Because we're about there.
So true to form, so I had an opportunity to be in the Vancouver session. There was another one in Vancouver. And one of the questions that came out is that the Microsoft team has done a wonderful job of really promoting the world of generative AI through typically into enterprises. And so can you give us a bit of a differentiator between what Microsoft's Azure OpenAI, whatever they're calling it these days, generative AI looks like relative to Fuel? And are there some interesting things that you're seeing the Microsoft team do in enterprise that you're watching as well?
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. So let me answer first for Harry, because he likes word economy, and I'll say no one model can do it all. No one system can do it all for you. But let me give you a little background on that and why I come to that conclusion. One is, if you look at it, if you think about this idea that TELUS had in 4 months had 150 different use cases, one of the things that taught them very quickly was, oh, wait a second, there's a wide variety here. And I probably can't just pluck one model out and it's going to solve everybody's problem. I probably need multiples. And that led them down another path about being able to switch between models and be able to support multiple models, which has other benefits in case like you can't use a model because they have too much, they don't have enough capacity for all their customers and all these other types of things. But like it starts with that. But the other thing I'll say is I'd say that, first of all, like Microsoft's got some really good stuff. Google has really good stuff. It's better than the things you had a year or 2 years ago. Go ahead and use it. You should. I recommend it. Like that is really good. But let me tell you a couple other things that I think are also true. One is my view from the beginning, and I ran a research company for 7 years around generative AI adoption, technology benchmarking, stuff like that. Our AI, NLP AI, other AIs, and then generative AI. And one of the things that I recognized very quickly was that every enterprise application is going to add generative AI. It's just so obvious. They all need at least help, right? But most of them, there's just things that are just easier. They're not going to put a button for everything. So you should be able to just ask it a question and get what you want out of it. And so whether it's Microsoft Productivity Suite or Salesforce or any other application that you might have, they should have generative AI in there. And they should be able to do a really good job because they control the whole stack. So I expect that to happen everywhere. But the other thing that sort of comes to mind is I remember talking to Adam Chaya, who's become a friend of mine over the last several years, and he was known as the founder of Siri. So Siri, which is part of the iPhone, but was originally an app, and he'd been building it for 15 years before that, and all these other types of things. And then he wound up building Bixby, if anybody used Samsung Bixby, not the old one, but the new Bixby. But he did a lot of innovative things. He basically changed the way people think about how you interact with devices. And he always told me, Brett, we need one assistant. Everyone needs one assistant. Otherwise, it's too much cognitive load. I'm like, Adam, listen, you've been super successful. So who am I to suggest? Like you built two things that are used by billions of people. And I said, but the world's just too messy. I don't go ask my accountant for legal advice or vice versa. If I want a plumber, I don't call an electrician. And humans are actually really good at navigating that. And in fact, technology is better when it's really tightly aligned. Everyone in here probably has somewhere around 100 apps on their phone. They've got about 30 they use every month, and they've got about 9 they use every day, right? All those apps are a little bit different. Could you have one app that does everything? Probably not, but maybe you could. And if you did, like, would it be as good? No, because like specialization matters. And so this is where we come. So I think the question is whether different types of generative AI are complementary or if they're competitive. And sometimes they are competitive because basically it's just the exact same thing. But very often, I think you should look at it as complementary. And so if I look at something like FuelX Copilots, it's not trying to be the best solution for working with your Word documents or your Microsoft PowerPoint. Could you use it for that? Yes. It's not designed to be the best thing for coding. Could you use it instead of GitHub Copilot or instead of Klein or Cursor? Sure, people do it. Like people on Harry's team do it. But there's always going to be something that's really specialized, and I think that that's fair, and you should do that. But you're going to have generative AI across your organization, and what we've done in terms of what we've built a solution that's really easy to use. We're told it's easier to use than all the other solutions, easy to customize. So everyday frontline people can get access to generative AI and improve their business, improve their productivity. And then we've solved a few very specific functional problems, like Phil showed you agent training, which is super complex, slow, all these different types of things. Creating a simulation engine because we have generative AI makes that better, and we've got a few others of those. And so that's the way we think about it. And I think that's a good question. And I say use all of it, but use it where it works for you. And then there's certain types of things I think you'll probably be interested in FuelX, and other places I'd probably steer you in a different direction.
I'll add one thing that I think is important is this is an extremely fast-paced race going on right now in the industry, and you don't really want to lock yourself in on any one model. It's just moving too fast. Maybe you're all right with one model if your use cases are general enough, but I promise you, once you start getting deep into it, all of a sudden you will have team members that want to specialize. And if you locked yourself in too narrowly, you'll have a hard time. And that's something that I like about kind of the setup we have with Fuel is I can change in and out the model as I want, as I need. And I can even use, because of the privacy issues that we have with some of these models, and you've heard about them on the news, I can use the Fuel API in some of these developer tools to still handle my security concerns and get access to all the specialized models. Like that's money on being able to keep my customers' data private and ensure that everything is well kept, including the IP of our company.
Yeah, I think that really is interesting too, because everyone is familiar with like lock-in. Like you've got a lock-in from a vendor who creates a technology, and then like it's hard to get out of it because like you've invested so much and there's no way to like move your data or train everybody or things like that again. And it was interesting because most people usually think about that as like an economic problem. But in this case, most of the like chief technology officers that I talked to are looking at this. They're worried about it from an innovation standpoint. They're worried about the asynchronous innovation that's happening. Everybody's leapfrogging everyone every 6 months. If I make a bet now and I'm going to be on the wrong side of that bet 6 months from now. And so that's been a super important thing for us. And then the other thing I think I did mention this idea that it's really easy to use. This is really important. I talked to like a CIO of a multinational organization. He's got 35,000 people who report to him. He had 65,000 Microsoft Copilot licenses, and he had literally hundreds of users. Like people weren't using it. And so he didn't want to talk to me about anything other than how did you get so many people at TELUS to use it? And there's a number of different things, but I think those are the types of things that we think about is usability. Microsoft Copilot, it's great. It's got a lot of good benefit. I'm like, people should use that. You bought those licenses, that would be amazing. And sort of walk them through, hey, these are the things you need to be successful with that tool. And some of those might be easier because of the way we built them in from scratch, but they could probably get there with that tool as well. So that's a fair question. Are there other questions people have? Yes, sir.
Andrew, you mentioned you use generative AI to code around 1,500 invoices. Which solution did you use? Was it Copilot? That's number one. Number two, how accurate that solution was in terms of coding the invoice?
It wasn't through Fuel, wasn't through Copilot. So the solution that we use in finance, a product called Beanworks, and so it's Beanworks' tool that we pay a separate licensing fee for, and it, like I was talking about before, it definitely wasn't perfect up front. In fact, it was downright miserable for those first few weeks, and our AP team spent a lot of time teaching it, but every time so basically the next month when that vendor sent the next invoice, it was a little bit better. And so the more that we could plug in about the vendor information, the more we do a lot of repeat buying in the nature of our business. And so the more that we could kind of teach it early on, now we don't think twice about those ones, and it's a quick review just to make sure and off and running. So a new vendor, new product might still require a little bit more tailoring, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think there's also a bit of a security factor there in double checking the work. Don't trust computers altogether. But yeah, the idea is that, again, it was taking 100% of her time to start, and then each week that went by and each month that went by got better and better and better and better, and now it's a fraction of her job. It was an add-on through Beanworks. So how the Beanworks licensing works is we originally just paid a base license as a AP system, and then part of their sales team, they pitched us on, hey, this is something we're building and offering. Do you want to try it? And we were one of the early ones to try it, and then kind of grown with it.
I do wonder about the pay models that companies are going to go into in the future with their tooling and saying, hey, these are these AI bonuses. We saw Slack just launch something like that. It was a bit weird, but for now, I see all the companies are going to, here's our AI solution you can pay extras for. But hopefully it starts becoming commodity, because I think it's kind of weird that they're just looking for this incremental cost on feature development that they wouldn't have done in other situations.
Sorry, go ahead.
And for Slack's example, they've just brought almost all of those what were add-on features back into the base, right? And this was, we're seeing this. The models are getting so much cheaper. OpenAI just reduced the cost by 80% on something. So this commoditization of the AI in the background is also starting to show it's very rapidly becoming table stakes as opposed to a nice to have everywhere. And I think from that buying, it's a hard place to be in to think about that, right? But a really important thing to think about. If you're paying for it now, it's very possible that it will be free or very much cheaper actually quite quickly. So the lock-in and the commitment cycles are also something to think about when you're buying.
No, you took the words out of my mouth. I think it's going to become table stakes, especially the more, even look at something like how many did you say the Copilots that Fuel's got? The more public ones that come out, the more OpenAI keeps developing. It very quickly becomes, that's not special anymore. So if you're not going to give it to me, then I'm going to go to somebody else. And so I think, yeah, right now, and like I said, we were early on with them, but I expect that if we were to look at alternative solutions, it would probably be an add-on pretty quick.
Okay. Did you have another question in back? This will be the last one.
Yeah, Brett, I think it could be a question for Steve as well. You mentioned that when it comes to analyzing structured data, LLMs currently aren't that great at it. There's that limitation across the industry. Do you think that problem can be solved with MCP, or how do you?
Yes. The one word answer. So this is actually, it's exactly what MCP is so great at, right? It allows you to connect into existing tools and data. Like a big problem is we want to get access to operational data, whatever that is. And what MCP allows is to be that connection across. allows you to talk conversationally to transform that into a structured data call into something. And this could be everything. So in my world, it's like writing a database query, which is not as like that's a somewhat specialized skill. It's getting access to SAP data in that word and being able to do that translation layer and call the right tool for the right job. And in fact, have like your AI assistant be able to help decide what is the right tool and then what is the right format to call that tool with is what MCP makes it such a transformative technology and opportunity for everyone. So yes,
So follow-up question, how far away are we from that?
it's happening now. So it's I want to give a little warning. MCP is an amazing technology for lots of reasons. There are some really intense security concerns because you have to give it access to those systems. So that is somebody's login security. And then the model in which that is secured is still being discovered today by the people building it. So you can go do good experiments. There's a ton of opportunity for like local personal improvement MCP. There is emergent opinion and standards in what this looks from securing at a very broad scale. But it is an emergent technology. So if you're working with MCP, it's a great choice. It's definitely happening. You're also at the extreme edge of early adoption right now.
Yeah, that's fair. In MCP, if this isn't clear, it's Model Context Protocol. And there's a couple people on stage that get really excited about protocols, but maybe not everybody. In general, it's just a more efficient way for you to access existing data, other systems with a large language model, generative AI in between. And I will tell you, the biggest surprise I have right now is no one asked me about agents, but we're going to be around for a little while. I don't know if people know AI agents, but they seem to be on every headline everywhere, and it's got a complex future ahead of it. So you can ask any of us about that. I think we're moving into the social reception. Meet one person, ask somebody a question about what they're doing with it. Like, one of the reasons we do this, by the way, is so you can meet each other. Like most of you, we know you already, or someone in this room knows you already, but we want you to be able to meet each other. So you have like local colleagues that you guys can share the journey together. You can share information, and then feel free to reach out to any of us that you've met today. This is really about education. I know we've showed a bunch of things that we've done, but it was not the intent for you to buy any one of those things. It's great if you want to. That's amazing. We'll talk to you about that. But mostly we want people, like through TELUS, we have these education initiatives, and we want people to know more about this so they're better consumers of this. And I think you're going to use a lot of Gen AI over the next few years. So if you learned anything today, that's questionable. Maybe some people learned a few things. I hope that pushes you in the right direction, maybe helps you avoid a pitfall along the way. Thanks a lot for everyone coming today.